Well, good evening. Although for me, this is very early in the morning at an airport hotel in London. Um, so, welcome. And I'm going to start off by saying I hate Oracle. I wrote this presentation and I thought the title was fantastic because this is really simple. And so the product is called Application Builder Cloud Services. And so I thought this was a great title. Extending your HCM Cloud Self Service is as simple as ABCS. And I hate Oracle because they've just changed the name to Visual Builder Cloud Service. So technically, this is now called VBCS. But we won't let that get in the way of a presentation. So that's what I want to talk about this morning. I want to show you how you can use a very simple low-code development tool to extend the applications, the SaaS that Oracle are providing in the cloud. So just a little bit of introduction for myself. I work for a company called Certus. We only do Oracle SaaS, but we've been doing it for quite a while now, and we've got a lot of customers. And now, as they've been using their systems for 2 or 3 years, they're thinking, what else can I do with it? It sounded great at the beginning. You can't customize, you can't do anything else with SaaS. But actually, there are some things that they would like to do now that they're used to using a cloud product. So that's the company that I work for. I've been working with Oracle on behalf of user groups since Fusion was just an idea, which goes back a long time. I represented all of the user groups, and I didn't realize it was going to be such a long time until Oracle delivered it. But actually, it's been fun. And it's great now that we've gone through the early adopters, the people who went first, and you're now into significant numbers who have renewed on their initial 3-year subscription. So the product's pretty mature now and growing all of the time. I'm on the board of UK OUG, and I am an advocate for user groups. I think the best way that we learn is from each other. So actually, that's my presentation, or that's my PowerPoint. I'm actually going to move into demo mode, which for anyone who knows me is a big risk because I'm just not technical. So hopefully, and Francisco's been practicing with me early this morning, hopefully I'll get this right. Okay, so as I said, the product is now called Visual Builder Cloud Services. And if I go into cloud.oracle.com, it's a PaaS, so it's a platform as a service, and it's here under application development, Visual Builder. Okay, so there's the product itself that we're going to look at. And it is simpler for everybody. It really is a drag and drop application. For me, I'm looking at this from a HCM self-service point of view. Now, that doesn't mean you can only use this with HCM. You can use this with any of the SaaS products, and you can use it to write standalone applications. It doesn't have to be linked to SaaS. But for me, my first use case that I see is around extending HCM self-service, because what you've got here is a community of users who are using a very simple browser tool to do all of their HR information. Find out how many days holiday they've got, find out what the company has written down about them, who's their next of kin, do they need to change that, do they want to change their bank details for their salary. All of those things are now done as self-service, and people are used to interacting with that. And so a good use case is to extend that, to do some of the other things that you might want to do. And, it could be something as simple as saying, we're going to have a mandatory training session on Friday. And instead of sending an email out to everybody and asking them, can you make it? Why not create a form and send that and have them go to that, so that it's self-service in the same way that they're doing everything else. So let's have a look at it and see what we can do. For this scenario, what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite, I'm going to create a form that invites new starts to a dinner at my company. I'm going to set up 2 dates, and I'm just going to set up a very simple registration form. What I want to do, and where I see the best use case here, is to use the data that's in HCM as my master data. So my employee's name as master data. So I could send out a spreadsheet and ask everybody to fill in that spreadsheet, and people would put their name in, and it wouldn't necessarily match my HCM system, which is what I need. So I'm going to use that as my master data. So I'm going to go into my ABCS, which is now called Visual Builder Cloud Services, as you can see here. Hopefully. Okay, it's very, very simple. All I'm going to do is start a new application, and I'm going to build a web application. Okay, and I'm going to call this APAC OUC, because that's what we're doing today. That's very simple. Just move to next. Now, it has a number of UIs, and actually the one that I want is Applications R12 Cloud, because that's the HCM system that I'm using. So if you're writing this for yourself, you can choose any of these UIs, or you can actually build your own. But I want to use the one that looks like the SaaS that they're using. The whole idea of extending it this way is so that they can't see the joins. So I'm going to choose that UI and move on. What am I going to call my home? Well, let's just call it dinner acceptance. And I can finish. So basically, I've now built my project. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to call it. Okay, so what I get now is a template here, or the ability to drag and drop onto here what I want. If I go up to this top area, so this is my header, basically, I can do things here like I can choose a company logo. So if I've got this right somewhere, here we go. I can add the logo here, and down the bottom I could change something here, and I could put created live on APAC OUC webcast. Getting very brave here. So I've done that, and you can see that this appears down here at the bottom, created live. Okay, so what I now need is some data. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to make available to me the APIs that come from the HCM system. Now, I need to do that manually today, because this version of BCS, or this version of the application builder, is not connected to my SaaS system. When you buy this, if you have a SaaS system, they will put this product into the same pod, the same instant, or not same instance, the same pod in the data center, and then it will auto detect the REST APIs that are available. But because I'm not using it there, because I'm using this standalone, I have to make those REST APIs available to it. So I do that by going into the data designer and looking at business objects. I don't have any business objects, because so far all I've done is said, this is what my application wants to be. So now I need to create a business object. Now I don't want to create this one, I want to make one available to it. So I'm selecting it from an external service. Okay. Remember, if this was installed against my SaaS, it would have auto detected these. So I'm just going to make this REST service available, and I'm just going to call it, I'm going to call it my employees. Okay. And it's a REST service, and I need to give it the describe URL for that API. And hopefully, yes, hopefully that was on my clipboard, which it was. And then I have to think about what security I want. So I can have no security, which means anybody who's using this application can get that data. Or I can use Oracle Cloud Account or user ID, which means that the person logging in has to have permission to see that API in the application. That's possible, and there may be times when you want that. But actually, because I'm only going to read that information, I'm quite happy as long as me, the designer of this application, has access to it. So the security is going to be on me, the designer of this. So that's what is basic. So it wants my username and password into the application. So if I put in, and I'm never sure that it gives the right password, so we'll just type that in. And hopefully, oops, we appear to have lost that. Okay. Right. Okay. Tick a button would help. Okay, so now I have this employees, which is the one that I've just created. And so now you can see that there's my URL that I entered. And I just select that. And now I can see the fields that are available. Now it is suggested that I would like these fields. And I know that the other field that I would like is the display name. So I'm just going to take that and move it over to the right. Okay, now interestingly, I can move these up, because this is the one that I want. And a really good reason for doing that, you will see in a second. So here's my authentication. And if I click on employees again, okay, now, I always find this really annoying. This first field is the row ID. And if anyone's ever seen eBusiness Suite or Cloud row IDs, they're long. So if we scroll past that, we can then see the other information that's on that API. And a good tip here is if you're using APIs with the cloud applications, this is a great way of seeing what's in them, even if you never want to use VBCS to create an application. So great way of seeing what data is going to come back. Okay, so I've now made that available. If I say finish, then I'm now going to be able to use this API in my system. Now, remember again, I've had to make this available because I'm not linked to my SaaS. If I was linked to my SaaS, it would have known that this API already exists. So we go back to my main menu and back to my page designer. This is where we were before, okay? So I'm just going to do a very, very simple form. I'm going to enter a name, which I'm going to select from SaaS. That's my self-service bit. And then I'm going to choose a date. And then I'm going to choose if there are any dietary requirements needed for them, okay? So I'm just going to use a collection field. And I'm just going to drag that onto the white area, so the information that I want. And you can see here, it's just saying, what columns do I want? Here you can see that I've got access to that API, but I don't have a business object. So if I drill into the technical part here, I don't have a database in this application, and I need a database. In this case, I'm going to have one simple table. So I'm just going to create a new business object, and I'm going to call that APAC OEC. Okay. Right. So now it needs some fields. So the first field I'm going to do is I'm going to take the name, and the name is going to come from a reference field, and it's going to come obviously from my EMP, and that's the only one I've got. It brings that up already, and the field that I want is that name. Okay, so if I tick that, so my first field is the name that's coming from my API. My next field is going to be my date, that preferred date, and I want that to be from a drop-down list. Okay, so from a lookup, I have to give my lookup a name, so let's call that date, and I need to define the lookup values. So I can add, let's have the 1st of September, and add another one, and have the 2nd of September. Okay, tick that. So they're now there. And my final field is just going to be special meals. Okay, again, I'm going to have that as a lookup. I'm going to create a new one. Some define lookup fields. So let's have, so we can eat anything, that's fine. Vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, no fish, no dairy. Okay, now what I can do here is I can move these if I want them in a different order. So if I put that way, that one should go there, one should go there. Okay, so you can move them around if you want. Just tick that, and then I've got my lookup fields. So that's actually all I want to do. I've just got 3 very, very simple things here. I just want to say, pick your name, your preferred date, and if you need a special meal. So if I go along my action line here, what do I want? So do I want a create page, an edit page, a detail, and a delete? So do I want to be able to, we don't really have any details here, so we could switch that off, but I'll just leave it on. If I never want to be able to delete data, for this situation, it would be fine. But if it was financial information I was entering, or something where I wanted an audit trail, then we wouldn't want to delete. Okay, so we can choose these for these actions. And then we've got options. Do we want to filter? So we can put a filter field in there. Do we want to search? Do we want to query? Do we want to sort? Okay, if we had a sort, we could put that on by name ascending, I suppose. Okay, we can do it that way. So you've got some options here. As I say, mine is such a simple option, a simple example here, that they don't really make a lot of sense. But you can go do an awful lot with this application. Okay, so it's done that for me. So what's it going to look like? So if I scroll up to the top of my screen, it says hopefully. Why am I not seeing the top of my screen? Okay, if I hit the run button, it will show me what this looks like. Okay, so this is what my application is going to look like. If you use the SaaS applications, you will know that this is my simplified UI. So I'm happy with that. I've got no records so far, so I'm going to create one. My name, here's my names. This has come from my HCM system. So these are the names in there. So I can choose one of these. I can choose a date. And do I have any special meal requirements? No. Okay, so I can save and close that one. And it's created one record. Let's create a second record just for the fun of it. Okay, choose a different date, choose something else. Okay. So now I've got my 2 records that I've done. So that's brilliant. I can go back to my designer. And I'm happy with that. Okay. So how do I make that a live program? Okay. So I go back here to the Go back here to my home, and here are all my projects. And this is the one here, okay? And if I open up the options here, I can stage this. I can make this, staging is more about testing it. And then there's another option at the bottom about publishing it. But I'm going to stage it at the moment. Okay, do I want to stage that with a clean database, i.e. lose those 2 records, or do I want to have the development data in there? So for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to keep that data. And then I stage it. And what it's going to do now is create me a URL that I can give people for that application. Now, if I needed to email people and send something out to people and say, go in and do this, I could use this URL. Or what I'm going to show you in a minute is how I can actually embed that into my application. So I now have a staged, and if I click on staged, it will open up a new tab which has a URL. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just copy that URL, okay? But here's my application as we saw it before. Let's create another record just to show that that's still working. Okay, I've now got 3 records. Happy with that. Okay, but let's now embed that into my SaaS system, because that's really what I want. I want to extend my HCM system. So if I go into that system, okay, so here's my application. You can see that that look and feel is very similar. I've got a slightly different shade of blue. That's because I've made my blue darker on this system. If I wanted to, I could create a template in Visual Builder Cloud Services to be exactly the same. But I've just done this to highlight a few things. Okay, so what I want to be able to do is to add that application to this list of buttons. Now, I've done several of these demos, so I've actually got a button that says Pass for SaaS. That's what we call this. It runs off the tongue, Pass for SaaS, development against these applications. If I open this up, you can see that I've done a few other demos before. And how do I add this one to here? Well, all I need to do is go to my menu here, go to my structure, and I want to create a page entry. So the category was Pass for SaaS. This is my page entry. Okay, and I'm going to call this, and I have to choose an icon. And I have to say, if you use SaaS, you will know that this is the slowest part of the whole system. For some reason, rendering these icons takes a while. Okay, I'll just choose any one. This isn't a category. I want it to sit underneath Pass for SaaS. And this is a static URL. Okay, and it's going to ask me for that URL, and hopefully that's what I've saved. Okay, and now if I go to my home page and I click on Pass for SaaS, here we've got our new icon. I click on that. Here's my application. And I can go in again, create a new one. And we can then sort, because we put that sort in, remember. Okay. So really that's, I've done the simplest possible example here, but the idea, I hope that shows the idea that what we're doing is we're taking a very simple low code development tool. If I can use it, anyone can use it. I've only used the drag and drop, and I've only used a tiny part. We can have summary tables. We can have, there's a lot that we can do here. You can extend some of the functionality with JavaScript. We can build some quite clever applications. As I say, this example that I'm doing here is very, very simple. And we're using the APIs that come from the SaaS to bring that data forward. That's my use case, is to use SaaS as my master data to extend my self-service. That doesn't have to be the use case. I've seen examples of this standalone. I've seen, I use it for my customers for collecting data at the very beginning of their projects, which we then load into their SaaS application. So we use it as a very simple data collection where the data doesn't already exist. I'll give you one example. We've done some work for charities, for like charity shops, and the charity itself doesn't know the name of all the volunteers in each of their shops. And so we sent out a very simple application that collected the data that was needed for those volunteers that could then be loaded into self-service. Okay, what we can do, if I go back to the Visual Builder, one of the things that I can do here is I can export. So I can come back here and I can export my data into CSV or different formats. So my data being what's in my database. In this example, I've just got that one object with 3 fields in it, but I can now export that and use it elsewhere. We did see that we had an option to write mobile apps. There is the ability to write a mobile app. You have to have a web app first, which you then make into a mobile version. That doesn't today work when you've used an API, but it will do in either the next version or the version after. And the versions, this is a cloud product, the versions come out frequently. It's always growing in functionality. In a way, I'm nervous that Oracle are putting too much into this. I don't want it to become technical. I want it to stay simple for super users to use. I see this as the subject matter expert in HR using this themselves to just extend their application and make it easier. When I'm looking here, there's no limit to what I can add to my SaaS application that's coming from elsewhere. But as the end user, I cannot see the difference. There is no difference in the look and feel. I can't see those joins. So it's very, very powerful to do it this way. So if I go back to my presentation, which is, got one more slide to it, it's simple to use. It's not called ABCS, it's now called VBCS, but it's incredibly simple to use. It looks like my software as a service. It looks like my Fusion application. The end user cannot see the joins. It uses the APIs, which I think is a great way to use my SaaS as my master data. APIs, HCM have got a fair number and it's growing rapidly. Finance are just introducing them. Sales Cloud has got many. In fact, in Sales Cloud, you can create your own objects and then they have a REST API that's generated off the back of it. So in CRM, this can be used for everything. In HCM, it can be used for a lot of things. So we've got employees, locations, jobs. There's a fair number there. And in finance, they're being introduced. As I said, I'm not using this linked to my SaaS today. Therefore, I have to make those APIs available. You saw how long it took, not very long at all. But if it was connected to it, it would auto-detect them. It uses single sign-on to secure the data. So again, if I'm linked to my SaaS system, it's installed in the same pod, it will use that same logon to go in. And it calls it seamlessly. You saw that link. I created the link. It opens a new browser window to run it, and my system is secured in the background, so I don't time out of my SaaS system, and I come back to where I was when I clicked on it. So there's no problem there. And it is very simple. And I've said here, give it a try, sign up. So if I go back to here, so cloud.oracle.com, platform, application development, visual builder. There are lots of videos that talk about it. There's an awful lot of videos on YouTube that teach you how to do it. It's very, very easy. And here, the button, try it. If you click on that, you get a 30-day trial, and you can extend that to 60 days. So you can get 60 days of using this for no cost. And if we talk about cost, and I'm not in sales, but this is like the cheapest product I've seen in Oracle. Well, no, that's not true, because Apex doesn't cost anything. But the metric for charging is the people who are building the application. So the designer is what you're licensing. You have to have a minimum of 5, and it's $100 per month per designer. So the minimum cost, $500 per month. I don't know that you'd need more than 5, and I am sure that everybody gets a discount of some kind. Okay, so it doesn't matter how many people use the application that you build, you are only paying the designer license. So for me, this is a very, very cost-effective way of extending my SaaS applications. And really, that's all I've got to say here. I'm hoping to come along to some of your conferences later in the year. And if that happens, I'll build a more complex demo that we can all try and do ourselves. Okay. So are there any questions?
Hi, Debra. No questions up to this point.
Okay. Do you have any questions, or are you still in shock that I did something almost technical?
No, but very surprised, and you did it very well. Congratulations.